Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this SAG Foundation conversation with Kevin Costner. This is an actor who's played everyone from Eliot Ness to Robin Hood, and he is also an actor and director whose next film as an actor will be the drama Black or White. His work has garnered him an Emmy Award, a SAG Award, 2 Golden Globes, and 2 Academy Awards over his career. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Costner.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Boy, it's nice to be around actors. Watch us, in about 2 hours, we'll just be complaining about everything.
Why wait? Let's start now.
I know. I should have got that series.
Well, the 2 times that I've been with you, you've received standing ovations. Is that a normal thing? Does that ever get old?
Well, everybody should be able to feel what I just felt just then. It's a great feeling, and I think we're colleagues, and I think probably everybody out there understands my journey has been a bumpy one, and I think half of the standing is like, "Good, Kev, you're still here, man." So. I think the one thing that we do as actors is we support each other on the set, off the set. Once we take our ego out, we go, good on you. So I accepted that in the spirit you gave it. Thank you.
And because this is a SAG audience, I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Well, it was a journey for me. It took me 7 years. When I decided that I would be an actor, it was in my senior year in college. I actually didn't decide at that moment. Once college was over, I said, this is what I want to do. And so then the big, oh, now what, right? But I had no skills. I had no technique. I just realized I had a giant desire to do this. I was not good in school. I was bad. And I was around people who wanted to be good in school. So I was at the bottom of the bell curve, without a doubt. Didn't bother me, but I realized that's where I was. So, I went to an audition, and I didn't get it. But I was really curious about who did. No, I didn't have any skills, and I know that I needed to get them. And I thought, I'm going to get them. And for the first time in my life, when I had this sense of what I wanted to do, I became a good student. It's true. I actually then took a couple of courses. I moved into Orange County. I moved from Orange County into here. I tell people that I used to sleep. I drive my car and I would go right to Sunset and La Brea, right where Ships used to be, that old diner thing there, and I would park right by the phone. But I didn't know who to call because I didn't know anyone. Only thing I knew about work was you needed to go. The work was here, and so I would come here and I would read the drama log, and I didn't know. And I eventually got a job taking out trash and stuff, but it was movie trash, and that was important to me. I worked at Raleigh Studios, but I couldn't get this elusive SAG card. It was very, very difficult, and I felt that SAG was the reason why I wasn't getting there. If I could get that card, if I could only get that card, I could make it. But for 7 years, I couldn't do it, and of course, people who were feeling really sorry for me in college, like, ooh, poor Kevin, what's he doing? They were on their second job already, their second house, their car, and those drives, believe me, when I'd see them at New Year's, Christmas, I'd drive home thinking, wow, they're doing really good. And I have a fucking interview in maybe 2 months. If the casting director didn't stay out for lunch too long, I would have it. So, when I'd say, well, what's the deal? I said, well, I need this SAG card, I need it. And they said, well, why don't you just do a commercial? And I thought, oh, okay. You mean like make one? What? It didn't happen for me early. And on the set of Francis Farmer, it was kind of a legendary show for giving out Taft-Hartley things. Of course, people left and right, they were just being passed out like little potato chips. And finally, at one point, they asked me to say a line to Jessica Lange, and I thought, I don't think he'd say that. and I And I really sincerely wanted this so badly, but I really did. I thought, well, you know, I see her every night leaving the stage, and I don't know that I need. But these people on the set desperately wanted me. Somehow they had heard my story, 6, 7 years, and they go, just say the line. I go, So finally I kind of said the line, and I go, mic him up, Jesus Christ, mic him up. It's like, Kevin, you have to say the line. And so I finally ended up kind of muttering it. And I went back to the extra bus, which brought us all the way. It was downtown LA. Because it was 3 in the morning, they had kind of kept me, and I was the last one literally on the bus. There was nobody on the bus. That bus, when it left, was going to be me. And I went back, and I will tell you sincerely, I think I cried a little bit back in the bus. I was like so angry with myself because it was important to my wife, it was important to me to get one, and I just muttered the line, simply not believing in it that much. And so I thought, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? What is wrong with you? You know? And pretty soon I saw this person walking towards a bus and down the front of the bus, and I kind of looked at and had that clipboard that I'd seen 1,000 times. That clipboard, that's a Taft-Hartley clipboard. And I saw him walk down the side of the bus and then come up, and it was probably a third AD. I thought they were Christ, that's all I knew. And they walked towards me, and I just couldn't help but get a smile, and I signed it. And that was a start for me. So it was not a thing overnight for me. It was a long road. I didn't really make a check till I was about 27 or 28, and I had to keep explaining myself at these Christmas parties that I was happy, and I was. We're the same. I was happy.
And once you did have that SAG card, I mean, did things open up for you?
Oh, I rolled, man. Yeah. I rolled.
The dream came true.
No, I was a first frat boy in night shift. It was really an extra part. I got lucky. I've had a really lucky career. But while it didn't happen for me fast, I've always been a plodder. I mean, I've always been somebody that things don't happen for me fast, but if I keep at it, it begins to happen. And of course, you know, I got a chance to, you know, be in The Big Chill. Jo Beth Williams, who I think is in the audience here tonight.
She's hanging out in the back.
I was surrounded by these actors that had skills. And I will tell you one simple story about Big Chill. I don't know how Jo Beth felt or any of the others felt. But I knew that when Larry cast me, it was the only part that he didn't have to check with the studio on. He had to check with the studio on all the other actors, but this one guy that was a small part was mine. He could pick it, and he picked me. And I remember driving home on the freeway, and I knew that it had happened for me that night. I knew that I had a big secret driving down the freeway, moving towards my house. I know eventually I was cut out. You know, I'm not stupid. I know I was cut out.
I hope they told him.
But I knew that so many things had happened for me. You know, had I been in a little town in Iowa and the movies came and I had a chance for one line, and then my whole family goes to the theater and it got cut out, that would have been a tragedy. But I learned so much, you know, being on that set. I like to think of athletes who, you know, in their life, you know, have never sat on the bench. We've seen our star athletes from junior high to high school to college, but at some point, even in their pro career, for the first time, they'll sit on the bench. It's an experience they've never had. How are they going to deal with it? Are they going to watch the game, or are they going to pout? And I chose to watch. And there's a lot that you can learn from watching. When I was on the set of The Big Chill, it happened for me. And I didn't need to be in the movie for it to have happened. It's as big a point on my resume as roller skating. No, that was a joke. Roller skating I didn't know how to do, but everybody put it on in the 70s. I don't know why.
They still do.
I could ride a horse, though. But no, Big Chill is an amazing moment for me. And you have to know what the moments are, and they're not always what the public sees. It's what happened to me as an actor, watching actors.
And out of curiosity, how did you get the news that you were going to be cut out of the film, and how
The
did you
director
react?
called me and he just said, look, I feel really horrible about this. And, you know, I said, I feel really good about you. I feel really good about what you've done for me. And he gave me a wonderful part in Silverado, a very flashy, scene-stealing kind of role. And it's really funny, too, because I knew, you know, Westerns aren't really in vogue. I've been in about 5 of them. Explains a lot about me. But I knew I would make Westerns, and what was so funny was when Larry asked me to be in Silverado, there was this one character that was wild and full of juice, so to speak. And I thought, no, I wanted to play the laconic one. I wanted to play, because I knew how to play that. I knew how to play that guy who just barely moved, who barely said something. And here it is, I read this part, and this guy's competing with the horizon with how he spoke. But it was such an important thing for me, and Larry was very generous with me to give me such a part that really helped me emerge, and people were able to see it.
We actually have a question from the audience, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. I believe it's Dana Jones. Is that correct? Dana? Great. Wanted to know, was there an event or something that influenced you to become an actor? When did you realize you wanted to do this as a career?
Well, again, listen, one of the hardest things, and if you have children, you understand, you know, you want them to find their way. It's so hard for us to almost know what we want to do. Probably everybody in here had difficulty explaining it to their college friends or even their family what you want to be. We know who we are. We're like animals on the Serengeti. I recognize you. I know you a million miles away. You actors. You wouldn't eat me unless I was just really sick, right? I'm one of you. The biggest moment in my life was me taking control of my life. I grew up in a very conservative background. I was born in lived in Compton, California. My dad had a single job. His family, he was from Oklahoma. They lost everything in the Dust Bowl. You know, Tom Joad was practically my family. Grapes of Wrath. And so, you know, my brother went to Vietnam, and I saw people protest that war and the whole thing, and I grew up in a very conservative way. I wasn't sure I liked long hair people. I wasn't sure my brother was over there fighting. I had a long way to go to catch up with who I was. Not that they were wrong, but I was simply kind of adopting what my parents thought about life. And so, you know, for me, a man made a living working with his hands. My dad was a fist fighter. He worked for the Edison Company. He was a tough guy. He looked as handsome as Paul Newman in Levi's and Levi's shirts, and he wore them for real. And so what happened was I went to college just like a rat chasing the cheese, you know, in a maze. I didn't know, but something was wrong. And I knew that I was performance-oriented. If I look back in my life, I realized I was in choirs. I realized traveling choirs, and I sang, and I played classical piano, and I did all that stuff. I wrote poetry. Not that I would tell anybody about it, but when I look back, I realized I did all those things. And so here I was, 21, 22, gonna try to get my first job at, you know, what's the big computer company?
Apple, IBM,
well, they went
Dell.
around, the big one.
IBM.
Yeah.
IBM.
I don't even remember them guys anymore. They're like a blip on my map. But I knew I wouldn't get a job with them. I knew I wasn't smart enough for them. And what I really was, I wasn't smart enough to know what I wanted to be in my life. And I knew that I had to break with people. And so when I decided that I would be an actor, that didn't solve the problem, because 7 years later I still didn't have a card. But if you want to talk about momentous moment for me, it was knowing who I wanted to be. And when I knew who I wanted to be, I was on my own yellow brick road. I was in a good spot at that point, because the one thing I am is I'm very dogged. If I kind of know what I want to do, that's a good place for me, and it's a bad place for you if we're going for the same thing. Because my dad said, and that's this Oklahoma thing, he said, if you can work all day, no one will ever take your job. And that's how I am. And so what was my big break? I could point at breaks, and you might even look at them and think, but for me was hearing my own voice, knowing what I wanted to be.
And you mentioned, you love Westerns. Were there movies that inspired you, like as a kid?
Yeah, I remember coming to Los Angeles, a birthday party. I was 7 years old. I'd left South Central, and somebody said, come to the Cinerama Dome. It was a child's birthday party. And so I came, and I think I sat on a chair, and when you're little, your legs are right here. So you sit like that. They never touch, and you eat your popcorn. It's like a 4-hour movie with an intermission. And the first image and the first voice I heard was Spencer Tracy. Spencer. I always wanted to have an Inherit the Wind speech, and I got one in black or white. I hope you see it. I've had a few, actually. I've really, been blessed to do the speech in JFK, to do Bull Durham, the small of a woman's back, high fiber, good scotch, soft corn pornography. Yeah. Open your presents Christmas morning rather than Christmas Eve. I've had a chance, so I felt really good about that. But I went to this movie, and the music was playing, and a man came along in a birch bark canoe dressed in skins, and on a lake that didn't even move, and when the camera looked where he was going, there were these people dressed in feathers. They were exotic, and they were beautiful to me. And I never left. Intermission came, and I was 7. All the other kids were running around getting in trouble. I never left my seat. I didn't want to give my seat up. And so when the second half came, I watched that. And, two things. I was kind of a crazy person. I built these canoes myself, and I went down all the rivers that Lewis and Clark went down myself. And then I started making long movies, because I saw one that was 4 hours long, and I never thought that was long. I thought that's how long they were supposed to be.
When you said intermission, I was like, that's right, they used to do that.
Yeah, they did.
So when you did decide that you wanted to be an actor, because I know you went to, I think it was Cal State Fullerton,
yeah,
but you majored in
marketing.
Yeah.
Not that funny. What's funny?
Well, acting is marketing to a certain degree, so it probably came in handy.
Well, I don't know what came in handy.
But we actually have a few people. Is it Too Fun West? Is curious, what technique do you use in your acting? Did you study with a coach or a teacher?
Yeah, I did. I told you, once I knew what I wanted to do, I began to immerse myself. Not only study with different teachers, but I began to really study film. I remember going to UCLA and taking 2 classes in film finance and film budgeting. And the very first day of class, I would sit in the front row, whereas my other college days, I would sit in the back, sit in the front. And I had already read the book. My other times in college, I didn't read the book till the night of the test. So I showed up in class, I had read the books, both books from, both of them on the first day, and I sat there and I started to understand what it was like to be a good student, because for the first time I was really on fire. And I think I employ a lot of different methods. What I don't do is I'm not 24-hour method, but I'm 24-hour thinking. I'm always thinking about what I do. I always try to nap, believe it or not, on the set as much as I can. And just before I do, I try to think of the movie. Now, I don't know what I'm going to dream about, but oftentimes I'll wake up and I will suddenly see very clearly something that I'd never seen before. Myself, I'm a very slow study. It takes me very long to memorize and to perform. I think I can memorize, actually. I hope I'm not boring you, but I can memorize, I think, as well as anybody, I guess, but I can't perform. I have to sit with words for 2 weeks. I have to sit with them to make them mine. A lot of people think my acting is natural. It's not. It takes me a while. It takes me a long time to own the words. And when I talked about Big Chill as being a very important moment in my life, we rehearsed that movie for a month. It's just not afforded actors anymore. I'm so sick of movie sets where actors don't get to rehearse. In fact, if you're going to rehearse, you say, hey, do you think I could Do you think we could do this, have this, can we do this a little bit? And you see, in fact, maybe let's just clear the room. And you see all the grips and everybody go, and sometimes some people say, no, you too. But sometimes when we need time, because we are fucking more complicated than that camera. And I see them wait an hour for a wood chip to raise the camera this high. Or get the spray for the camera. Or get the something for the camera. This God Panavision. 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 Oh, Panavision. If we could, Panavision. And God forbid an actor says, hey, could we have 10 minutes to work on this thing? And then you see people do this. It's really wrong. It's really wrong. And so we have to become director-proof. We have to become time-proof because they're not wanting to give it to us. It's a process that is not honored. And to be truthful about it, hey, nice camera work, really. You see me there?
That's this one. It's locked.
That's it. Gee, how am I now? It's like...
Such a director.
But it's really a process that we require, we need. And when I do work, I force myself to be under pressure. I mean real pressure. Because think back in class, right? Who went to class? Think back in class. Wow. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. The night you put your scene up, what happens? It doesn't go as well as it went the night you practice it 100 times with your scene partner. It goes pretty good on your drive home and you're going, fuck me. Fuck me. Why didn't I think of that? Why did I tighten up? Why did I tighten up? And I was so good on Wednesday and now I get up here. And you sit down and you stew in the back of the class and you stew on that drive home. Because it's hard. It's hard. And what happens is, so let's think about that for a second, because I have. So when I tell you I think about things for 24 hours, I am a little bit obsessed. Okay? So I think about that. Why didn't I do this? Well, so maybe there's a clue in there, which is maybe I got to create a lot more pressure on myself in rehearsal so that I can drive home and go, okay, I should have thought of that, but guess what? I'm not being paid for that day yet. And find a way to put yourself under pressure 3 or 4 times, intense times before you come to the set. Because then you're not going to be going, man, I should have thought of this. What happens is when we're lazy in rehearsal, when we're casual, we don't advance anything. We don't put ourselves in the position to drive home and go, I should have thought about that. So I've learned that about myself. So I try to figure out how to put myself under pressure when I'm doing rehearsal with anybody. I want to go away from that moment, and it's only if you're under pressure do you do that. And that's what we love about movies. God, I wish I was that dude. He said, I love you just at the right moment. Well, in real life, we don't get it right at all, but in the movies, they get it right all the time. We see movies and go, God, I wish I would have said that. I wish I would have said that. So, for me, I come to work completely off book. I have to. And 2 or 3 weeks before, and I learn everybody else's lines. Because I really important to me to know what's being said. So that's my approach. And and what else do I have going for me? I have what you have going for you. I have my hands. I have my feet. I have my body. I can turn it. I have my head. There's so many tools that we have to tell the story. And I try to use them all. And I start with the facts of my script. The facts of my script are how I guide my character. So, you brought so much to your character. Thank you very much. But I started really with the facts of it. This writer was brilliant, practically handed me my performance. I really had a great part in Black or White. And I had some really great things in there. But it was such a good part. I knew I was terrified of it because I knew I was the only person that could screw it up. You know, there's like 1,000 people. This room wants that part. Well, you can't have it because I do, but I'm going to do it for you. Because every actor would want that. That's why when I rode in the Buffalo, I wrote it for everybody that wanted to be in the Buffalo. Girls and boys. We have no license and no hold on these kind of movies. And you know, when I get to save the girl, I save them once for me and I save them once for everybody else, you know? I kissed Whitney, I kissed her once for everybody, and I kissed her once really good for me.
So you like to memorize your whole script before you get on
Yes.
set? How do you feel about improvising then once you're on set?
Well, I'm really ready for that then. I said, when you're panicked, there's almost no room for improvisation. You're just so worried about getting it right. So for me, I always try to, by being really prepared, what I really allow myself is a window of opportunity to step through. Because sometimes this, how you doing, camera? I need to explain my haircut. I played a fucking criminal in my last movie, and they jacked my hair up so bad. So if you want to review this later and go, what happened to his hair? Now I'm telling you, okay?
That's so, I was just thinking actually how good it looked. I like the look on camera.
So what was the question? What were we talking about?
Improvisation?
Oh, improvisation. Yeah. I think that, you know, I went to Groundlings.
Really?
And yeah, I went there. I really went there. They almost didn't let me in because I couldn't do the emotional alphabet. They audition you. Well, it's like if I say to you, okay, give me the letter A and be real happy with A.
Hey!
Yeah, exactly. And then
I didn't get it either.
No. And then be mad. Well, I just went in there and I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it for them. I wanted to be in the class, but I didn't want it that bad. And so when I got through and not being able to do the emotional alphabet, I said, hey, look, I really want to be in this. I have my own reasons why I want to be here. I will try really hard. Just please fucking let me in. Don't piss me off. Don't have me do this alphabet. And the teacher was really generous to me. She said, okay. And I went in and watched the building blocks of improv and really appreciated that it's a really an art form. It's not just people repeating a word back to each other. There's a real skill to it. And it helped me advance my own writing. And so I what was the question?
Improv, if you like
Okay,
to improv on set. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure you knew. So what happened was, you know, I knew that was going to be part of my arsenal, having to do that. But I don't lean on improv. What I do is I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. And, you know, a lot of times our directors will come to, you know, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes they go, hey, I'm going to be on this one. Could you just improv some lines? Well, thanks a lot, but okay, yeah, I'm supposed to have that skill, my toolbox to be able to do that. So I have an ability to do that. But a lot of times when I'm looking at scripts, I kind of anticipate that. And as a director, if I see that that's going to happen, I'll actually go to my actor and say, you know, I'm going to be asking you to make up some lines here. I'll do that a week ahead of time to give them a chance, because sometimes in that improv, we actually have a moment to advance the story, not just fill the air. We actually can advance the story. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, I can actually go home and be really excited about like one line I thought of that no one thought of, and it came in. And that's why I know I love to act. I just love it. And that can really excite me. I'm not so thrilled about the red carpet, the premiere. I'm not immune to it. I have an ego. I like to be there. I like my friends to come and see. My wife gets to dress up really pretty. But I really can be excited about a great rehearsal. I can be excited about something that happens at work where we unlocked a problem, either in blocking or a word said. And I can't tell you why, but I feel so grateful that somehow, when I think about that momentous moment that you were talking about, that I heard my own voice and it said, go build a cornfield. I thought, what the fuck, what? No, I mean, I listen, I've heard voices like that, you know. This latest one, Black or White, was a movie that came to me. Mike Binder, great writer, director. I was able to do a movie called The Upside of Anger, where I played a supporting part. He liked our collaboration a lot, and then right after that movie, he sent me 4 scripts. 4. And they were all really good, and I said no to all 4 of them. And that's hard. That was hard on our relationship. Because how many are writers out here? Smart, that's good. And so what happens is when you write something, generally speaking, the last thing you write is what you consider your best work. And so when someone hands you their best work, and you, for whatever reason, reject it, even if it's a near miss, and that's what they were because he's a world-class writer, I had to say no. That could have affected our relationship. It could have certainly been, well, that's the last one I'm sending you. But he didn't give up. He's dogged. And a script came across. To me, it was called Black or White, and it deals with the current situation of race in this country. And I just thought it was great. And I told him, I said, we're going to make this movie. I know we're going to make it. And I'm going to get it made for you. Me and my big mouth. It didn't happen. No matter where I took it, it just wouldn't take. And I eventually, and I've done this before, but I made this long walk down the hall, clip, clop, clip, clop. And my wife's going, don't come in here. Don't come in here with this. I said, look, I think we're going to have to finance this movie. Because I promised him. And to her credit, she's not an actress, never wanted to be. You know, and that's never interested her. I've interested her. And so our relationship has been that. And she looked at me almost like little Annie in Field of Dreams and said, well, if you really think you should do this, then I guess you have to do it. And, you know, that's really how I've conducted my career. So, you know, it was a really good part. I thought I'd pay millions of dollars to play it. That's what Black or White's about.
I'm curious because I'm assuming it's been a long time since you've had to audition for a part. But in those early days, how were you at auditioning? You like rehearsal? You can improvise?
Well, I had to learn that too. I bungled things. I liked acting so much. If it was for an elf, I would try it. You know, when I was in class, it was like, how many times can you get up? I can play the rabbit. Fuck it. Watch this. You know. And so, you know, I wanted my turn and wanted more turns. I wanted to get better because I wasn't good. And I knew I could be good if I could just do it more. You know, I learned, you know, and there was a moment in time where I decided that I just had to be me. And Wally Nocita was a really important person in my life. And she recognized me because I kind of settled down a little bit. And so that was there's something I want to say about this auditioning. I would audition for a part if I really wanted it. I wanted to be in Schindler's List. I wanted to direct that movie at one point because it wasn't going to be directed, and Steven had developed it, and eventually he did direct it and did a beautiful job. But I wanted to play Oscar Schindler and didn't think I was right. I flew across the country. I put a bald cap on. I auditioned for him in his kitchen in an apartment in New York. I've never told anybody that, ever. Never said that in an interview, but if I want something, I go for it. And I didn't get it. And I hate him. You know what I loved about Steven? He said, come on, come on. And so I went and I tried, and I did the best I could. And it wasn't enough to get that part. But if you want something, that's what you do. And I would have to love something to audition. I realize I'm in a good spot. You know, I don't have to do that. But I recognize, you know, it's one of the hardest things when I direct is when you come in to read with me, I want you to get the part. The casting directors always say to me, you spend way too much time with these people. And I said, well, you don't know us. You don't know how far somebody's driven. You don't know what this means to them. And so I want it to happen, and it doesn't always happen. But I totally get it, how hard it is for you, how hard it was for me, and how now easy it seems to be for me. It's not. It seems almost everything I want to do feels like I'm pushing a rock uphill. I don't know why that is, but it's been my way. And I guess it will probably continue. I love actors because all they want to do is please. And I will say this to you, if you're not good in a film, it's not your fault. It's a director's fault. And that may be half true, but I say it simply because if you were cast, some directors don't know anything but their camera. And you might need help. And so if you don't come off, it's because that director didn't somehow get down in the dirt with you and say, this is what I need from you. Let me show you what I mean. If it comes to monkey see, monkey do, let me give you a line reading. I'm really okay with that, by the way. I've been with a director, I go, I do not know what the fuck you want from me. Why don't you say it for me one time? And I go, that sounded perfect, I'll do that for you. I don't care how we get there. But what I'm saying is the directors, they needed to help you. If you felt lost, I think it's because your director obviously didn't weigh in and really unlock this thing. Your job was to come prepared, right? Yes. That was your job. Your job was to had a few drive homes thinking, I should have done that, so you come ready to work. But I believe that's that director's job, is to get that performance out of you. And that's why I've always thought absolutely that we have mistitled actors. I feel like I'm a supporting actor. I feel like lead actors should be called supporting actors. Why? It's simple. We're the only ones that can help people who come for one day on the set. They're nervous, they don't know anybody, they're getting dressed, maybe the clothes don't fit, and next thing you know, you're out on your mark. With a director, maybe he thinks that you're supposed to know what you're doing or doesn't know how to tell you what you're doing. There's only one person that can help you. And that's that supporting actor, that's that lead actor who's looking at you and can see that you're nervous. No shit. We get nervous. And we say to the director, I think you should give him another take. Because I fucked that up. Mm-hmm. I fucked that up. He needs another take. And I fucked that up again. And basically, and basically, I stick with my actors because I know you can do it. You just need to be relaxed, right? That's what we need to get. We need to get relaxed. When we're relaxed, we're really good. And if you're not relaxed, there's only one person that can make that happen, and that's that lead actor. It says, why didn't everybody take a break? And the camera can take a break too. And we get it right. And we feel really good about each other if we were working together. We'd feel really good about that day. And so that's why I think lead actors really should be called supporting actors, because we're, in effect, the only people that can do it for the person that comes on for a week or a day or a moment. That's the way I think.
And I mean, was directing something you always wanted to do, or did you discover a passion for it working with other directors, both maybe good and bad, that inspired you to want to be a
No,
good
I don't
director?
think. I think that I wish I could have gotten more, but maybe people wish they could have gotten more from me. It's that moment in time. But I wanted on dances. I wanted 3 very well-known directors. You know them. I won't tell you them. I already told you the story about going across the country. That's enough for our intimacy. No, I'm actually willing to answer almost anything you want to ask me. But I went to 3 very established directors, and one of them said the movie's too long. Another one said, we're going to have to get rid of that Civil War sequence. And then another one said, we can't have, I don't think we should have subtitles. I think we do that. And I said, okay. And then I thought to myself, I'm not going to keep going down this list. If anybody's going to screw this up, it's going to be me. And so, for $75,000, I hired a secretary. I got myself a little office, and I scouted that whole movie. I never directed anything, but I knew that I would die trying. And I will tell you this: after about 28 days on that movie, we shot 108. After 28 days, I was 10 days behind. I was 10 days over schedule. You imagine that? And the bond company came and they wanted to do things, to me. And I said, well, hey, fella, I wouldn't mind doing a few things to you too. I said, what's your profit margin as being the bond company? He said, what do you mean? I said, if things go really good, what do you make as a profit if I don't fuck up? Well, we make this amount of money. I said, I will pay you that right now to leave because you're bugging me. You're making me not relax, okay? I said, I'm having trouble with these animals. And he says, well, what are you going to do when you have 6 pages of dialogue with an actor? And I said, I'll be done by noon. And he went like, huh. And I thought, huh. I thought, what a lame fucking thing that was. Huh. And I said to him, I said, by the way, you're not on my payroll. It costs $16 to get off my truck. He never showed up again.
I like to think that you thanked him in your Oscar speech.
No, I don't say that to come off as a tough guy or whatever. I knew I was behind. I get it. I'm just going to outsmart it. But understand something. I was 28 days at the end of that movie over schedule. But I was only 3% over budget.
Really?
I was inside a contingency number. Why? Because I just outthought it. I just kept working hard. I worked longer than anybody else, like my dad said. I just had to figure. And by the way, my parents, holy fuck. I love my parents. They came to every Little League game I ever was in, everything. And they came to watch me direct too. Oh. They bought a trailer and they would put it up on the hill and they would get their lawn chairs out. And I would see them and my mom would stand up and she'd go. And I'd go. And my dad would just sit there. I swear to God, my parents watched me direct that movie. And for as hard and as embarrassing as that is, it's also a lovely thing for me that they would want to see that, every morning. And I look at the crew and I go, I know. But, my dad didn't think the acting thing was going to go so good. And he goes, oh my God. And so then when I told him I was going to direct, he went like, what the fuck? This acting thing is going so good. Why do you want to mess this up? So when I actually went into music about 10 years ago, I didn't tell my dad at all. I think it's because it's really hard to get people to understand what our hearts are as actors. I don't know what it is about us, why we feel like we just want to tell stories and we want to be a part of that storytelling. And it's kind of only us can talk to us, because eventually people just start to shake their head because they don't think anybody in the world can talk about acting as long as we can. And as often as we can, because it's kind of in us, and I know that. And that's why I would say to a casting director, no, it's okay. She's gonna do this again, or he's gonna do this again, because I know what it's like to be a part away from somehow changing your life, because a part can do that. It can, and but the fact that you chosen this and even to come here tonight and listen to me just kind of ramble, I appreciate it sincerely.
Sure, I'm not going to stop you. Going back, speaking of parts that kind of change your life, it seemed like things really took off after Silverado. Maybe, I know Big Break is kind of a misnomer, but I know 1987 was obviously a huge year because you had both No Way Out and The Untouchables, where you're being billed above Gene Hackman and Robert De Niro. Were those audition situations?
No. What happened was that Silverado was a pretty flashy role, and the guys at Orion Pictures decided they wanted to maybe work with me. And I don't know if any of you guys, Mike Medavoy, Eric Pleskow, Arthur Krim, Bill Bernstein, really good men, important men in my life. they saw me in this role, and they came over and they said, "We'd like you to be in one of our movies." And I read all their movies, and I didn't like them. And I said, "But I did read a movie called Finish with Engines over at Warner Brothers." And they said, "You don't like any of our movies?" I said, "Well, did that come out wrong?" And I said, "They're near misses for me." But I said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I read a movie called Finish with Engines that I liked a lot. And they said, all right, well, we'll check it out. And they took it out of Warner Brothers, and they retitled it No Way Out. And so what I'm saying is that I found that movie. And, you know, I'm always hunting and pecking around for things. I have things in my pocket. If somebody said, you want to make a movie tomorrow, I know exactly what I'd make. And now I have about 6 things that I would exactly make because they're mature, because I continue to work on them. I don't wait for people. I kind of see things and I just keep making them, and so I'm ready to go. So in that instance, there was no movie over there, but all of a sudden there was a movie here. And believe me, Warner Brothers changed their policy on turnaround scripts for the next 15 years. They didn't let one go that way, because that movie was a nice success. Now, here's the play in life, okay? I forget what was made first. You're going to understand why I'm so screwed up in life. But they decided No Way Out was done before Untouchables. But because it was a big studio movie, they decided to release Untouchables before No Way Out. At least Orion did. They thought they'd piggyback off if something happened for me in Untouchables. But no, I did not have to read for Untouchables, and I was very cognizant of who was acting in that. And I remember telling Sean Connery that I thought he would win the Academy Award, and of course he did. And I really miss Sean, not seeing him. I will tell you, you know, I'm asked sometimes who's the best actor. Very impossible question, because I'm going to leave really good actors, you know, not on the list. They are on the list. But if somebody said to me, you know, what actor just really, really blew you away, okay? So now we're not saying best, but we know what we're saying. And I'd say Gene Hackman. He was the most real. And if somebody said to me, who's the biggest star you ever worked with? One guy, Sean Connery. That guy is, number one, it doesn't diminish him by being the biggest star. So you shouldn't think for a second, oh, actor Gene Hackman, big star Sean Connery. No, Sean Connery, tremendous actor, tremendous film actor presence, but truly was the biggest star, and I really miss seeing him.
Was it intimidating to be first on a call sheet with names like this under you?
Yeah, you go, Mr. Nash, can I have a talk with you first? What's this shit about you being number one? I know. Look, he's a no-nonsense person, very skilled, and was very, very respectful to me and very helpful to me. And by the way, it doesn't matter where you're at on a call sheet. When he walked on the set, I went and got his chair, because that's what he deserved. That he was number one on the set. When I was on the set, he was number one, because that's the way I want it to be, you know. When good things started to happen to me, I didn't think I should automatically be on the Academy Award show. I didn't think that. You know, I'm very romantic about our business, about what it's meant to me. I was in my 20s trying to get a SAG card, and I'm going to be 60 in about 4 weeks. I don't know where the time went. I'm going to be 60 years old, and I have loved all of it. The battles, the dreaming, the rehearsal, you know, and, you know, so I've had a life in this. And so when I was on the set and Gene Hackman's there, I'll tell you a story about Gene Hackman. You want to hear it?
Yes.
I was making No Way Out, and I was having trouble with a scene, and it seemed to me like we were doing a scene. We started off immediately working in the Pentagon, which was right at the end of the movie. And one day I show up and I had like blood all over me, and everybody went crazy. What are you doing with the blood? What are you doing with the blood? The costumer, because he just put blood all over himself, and everybody got really, really panicked. And And you know, the director came to me and goes, "What's up with the blood?" And I said, "Well," I said, since no one wants to rehearse, I'm just coming from a real long run chase, right? A long run and chase with really bad guys. I mean, dangerous guys chasing me. And it says in the script, we get into hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. I said, well, unless we want to make these guys dodos, I should probably be really hurt and cut. And so just because we haven't seen it, we're going to figure out how to get me cut. But right now, I'm going to have blood on me in this white uniform. And everybody went, okay. And of course, the grips are going, wow, this is interesting. I wonder how this is going to go. So I lead that up to, we were working in this office a lot, and it seemed to me that every scene was happening around this desk. And we get to the scene where I learned that my girlfriend has been killed. And the scene started at the desk, and I said, this isn't right. And I said, it's got to be somewhere else. I mean, I'm being called at 3 in the morning here by a guy who's been a total dick to me, Gene Hackman's character. And I said, now he needs me. Now he needs me. At 3 in the morning. Do you think he's going to stand me in front of the desk? I think he's going to have a fucking cup of tea waiting for me and sit in the couch and be kind of nice to me, maybe kissing my ass just a little bit. Not so I'd know it, but there should be something different about it. Now we're going to do it at the desk. So I try it at the desk, and finally I get a little pissed. And finally I said, you know, it's over here. It's over here. And finally, and I said, and they go, well, what about Gene? I said, well, Gene can do whatever he does. Gene, it's up to Gene what he wants to do. I'm going to be here, and I think that I think I want to be sitting here. I think I want some orange juice and some donuts and some shit brought to me, and you can figure it out. You can go to catering and get them for all I care. And it was like, ooh. And so I said, let me show you. So I start to show, and as I'm doing the scene, I'm saying about right now is maybe when the donuts could come in. And finally I was like, we're not doing that. We're going to be over here at the desk. So we go, fine. So we go over to the desk. Now I'm going to rehearse again. Camera probably can't find me for fuck. So I go to the desk, and I start to do this scene again, and all of a sudden, something in me, the same voice that was in me that said, go be an actor, said, you know what? It's over here. It's over here at this table. So you sort out where the coffee and stuff is from. So we do that scene. And Gene's brilliant. He just hangs out over by the window and does whatever he wants. So now it's the end of the day. And I'm walking out to my car, and Gene's walking out to his car. And he said, hey, can I talk to you? I said, yeah. So I walk over to him. He said, you know, if you ever do that to another fucking director in front of me again, I'll fucking kill you. But he didn't say that. That's what I thought he was going to say. He said, you know, I watched you today, and went through a divorce, and about 3 years ago, I've been doing a lot of shitty movies, and I've been trying to pay for this divorce, and kind of didn't feel about acting the way I've felt, you know, for a long time. And he goes, I watched you today. I used to feel like that. Mm-hmm. He said, I was really happy to see you do that. And then he got into his car and he drove off, and you know, it was like it was an important moment for me, because I had been thinking about this script a lot, maybe more than people that were making it. And it was a moment, and I thought he was going to hand me my head, and I was going to just listen to it, but he didn't at all. He went to that place that was respectful to me, and I never forgot it.
I think it was an important. Sure. Stop. I suspect it was an important moment for him too, because he started doing really good work again. After that, he won the Oscar like 5 years later.
He was a beauty.
Yeah.
He was a beauty, and we don't see him anymore. So I've been able to act with these guys, Bert Lancaster, and people like that. It's been good. Bert goes, studios were afraid of me. They were afraid of me. I asked him about something about the Kentucky, and he goes, "You saw that? You saw that?" And he talked with his hands. Wrapped your arms around the sky so blue. He was very histrionic with his hands. And I said, "Yeah, the thing where you ran around," he goes, yeah. You saw that. This is what I did. I ran across the water. And I said, "Was there plywood?" "Yes, there was plywood." So, but I told the director, "I'm going to start there, and I'm going to work my way backwards. And you tell me when he's done loading, because that's where I'll start when we roll the camera. Okay?" And I said, "That's what I thought happened." He goes, "You saw that?" I said, "I did, Bert." And there was a moment in time when he did that speech for me in that room about a stranger passing in a crowd. And Bert was having a hard time that night. He wasn't getting his lines. He wasn't getting it at all. And it was hard on the director. It was really hard on the director because at a certain moment, you think that he's not going to get it. And I remember saying, "He's going to get it. He's going to get it." And then I remember the word came to me that Bert didn't really want me on the set. He was embarrassed that he wasn't getting it. And I said, "No, I'm going to be right here." I said, "We've already got it twice." And then the next take, he did that take that's in the movie. Stare up at that sky.
Since you brought up Field of Dreams, we're going to spend the next hour talking about it. It is one of mine, and I'm sure many people's favorite movies of all time. But I almost wonder if that movie could get made today. It's very...
Well, it's black or white. It's that movie, it's just as good as Field of Dreams. And when you see it, I hope you feel that way.
I think a lot of people have
they're
seen
hard.
it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah? They're hard. Dances would, there's a lot of executives that will talk about Lawrence of Arabia, but not green light it.
Mm.
It's just the way it is. And so we can't help that. So what do we have to do? We have to go find our stories. We have to stick together. I had a friend, it was such a pain in the ass friend. I'm this guy. And I tried to help him a lot, and because that's what I wanted. And he was a real child of the 60s. He's a writer. And so when things started to happen for me, I would get him interviews. And he would come back, and the people would give me a really bad report, like he was rude. And I go, well, that's just him. And I made excuses for him a lot. And he was rude to a lot of people. And he was a pretty good writer and whatever. And I remember one day at my home, things were going well for me. And he started bemoaning the fact of Hollywood. And Hollywood doesn't know what they're doing, and they don't know about scripts. They don't know what good scripts are. And then he said something about a couple people who were friends of mine, as good of friends to me as he was. And it got bad. And I remember I picked him up on his feet. I picked him up. And I was mad at him. I must have been, right? And I put him up against the wall. I said, "Stop it. Fucking stop it." And I said, you don't like these scripts. I said, "Why don't you?" He said, and I looked down, and there was about 4 scripts under his feet, so I had him in the air a little bit. And I remember I realized, fuck, I got him in the air. And so I kicked the scripts out, and they went out just like cards. It was very dramatic, too. So I had him here, and I said, if you fucking hate scripts so much, quit writing them. Quit writing them. You're a writer, right? Yeah, I'm a writer. I said, well, then quit writing scripts, especially if you hate Hollywood so much. And let's write a story that ends on page 88 or 888. If you're a writer, write that story. Quit trying to write these things that are 120 pages long. And when you put your hands on a friend, that's about it. It's like that's a severe thing. But he had pushed me far. He pushed me really, really far. Still no fucking excuse, but that's what I did. And so so did I lose my friendship? No, this fucker comes knocking on my door. He says, I don't have any place to stay. Can I stay with you? Yes. He goes, I'm writing this story. I said, I don't care. He goes, I said, you're in the back room. And every night he would say, can I read to you what I wrote? And I go, no. And so after a month and a half, can I read? So then all of a sudden my wife says, he has to go. I said, why is he? Because he's in his underwear and he's reading to our daughter who's 4. And I go, he's just, that's what he does, honey. But so finally after 2 months I said, you have to go. So he went and stayed with another friend of mine for about 3 weeks, and then he left to Arizona, Bisbee, Arizona. And he goes, did you read my story? I said, no, fuck you. And he goes, okay. Hey, I'm cold down here. He goes, I'm working at this ranch. I'm killing raccoons at night, and I work at a Chinese restaurant washing dishes, and there's a lot of dishes in a Chinese restaurant. And I go, Jesus Christ. He goes, I'm cold. So I said to my wife, okay. So I got him a Coleman stove. I sent him sleeping bags, and he was sleeping in his car. He goes, you read my script? No. Story. I said, no. So finally I picked it up and I read it, and it was Dances with Wolves. Oh. And I read it all through the night. And I read it, and I called him up, and I said, he goes, what? I said, Michael, I'm going to make this into a movie. Just like I said for Black or White. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I went out and I paid him scale. It was all the money I had. It was like $26,000. And I said, come stay with me. We're going to turn this into a script. And that was at $75,000. I have a little envelope. I go, what do you pay a secretary? And then somebody says, I don't know, $450. I said, okay, $450. And I got $26,000, $75,000. I prepped that whole movie. And Michael won the Academy Award. But he had to understand something, that if we act, we act. If we write, we write. And 88 pages or 108, I got, you know what I'm saying, or 120. We just have to try to be what we are and let people see our work, see who we're about.
So he's moved out of the house.
He did, yeah. And I'll just tell you this, Michael's fighting for his life right now. Michael's probably on his last days. But he had a moment, and he was a true writer. And it took somebody to maybe put him on the wall and say, because this town can confuse us. It confuses us about, who's in and who's out and who's up and who's down and girls who wore it fucking best or who it wore. It's very hard. It's very hard out here, who's popular, it's like, wow. You have to really have a way to hold on to yourself, because there's so many signals out there that are untrue. The value of a movie, it's number one. Oh, does that mean the others aren't any good? We're confused. I want to have a number one movie, but not so bad that I'm going to spit on myself. It's hard to hold on to yourself. It is.
I actually want to talk a little bit about that, because you spent so many years, I could name off this run of amazing films that were received both financially and critically so well. And then for a while there, the critics were really hard on you around the time of, I guess it would be like The Postman and Waterworld. And how did you deal with that?
Well, I like those movies, so I
also love the stage show at Universal, the Waterworld show.
Yeah, I liked them, and they're not perfect movies, but I love my moments working with my actors, and I love making those things. And I can't, it's a Waterworld's a very beloved movie around the world, and it's and I understand, and I got a divorce after 20 years, and I think maybe people thought of me as like this perfect situation. I don't know what it was, but I've told people before, I've taken some big bites out of life. I've pushed all the chips in the middle, mortgaged my house to make things, and I'm not bluffing. So I've taken some big bites out of life, and life has taken some equally big bites out of me. And this industry can get at you, and they can that can come after you, and they can do that. But I've had tremendous supporters out there in the world all the way through. I mean, fuck, man, I'm on the cover of AARP. And I say to everybody that gets that magazine, you fucking pay full price for my movie. You don't pay senior prices. You don't go to matinees and you don't split checks. You go full boat. But it's the nature, and I think all of us can do better with constructive criticism. Mean-spirited criticism helps no one. I know that when people tell me that they think I've done something good, that puts a fire under me, believe it or not. I feel like, okay, I'm on the right track. That's what I need to be doing. So I've always been able to live with constructive criticism. It's the cute stuff that's hard to take, that kind of bites you. You know, I try every time. Does it work? I don't know. I guess the way you make it work is you just make the same movie that worked over and over and over again. And we see that pattern in our industry, and it leaves a lot of us out. You know, the repetition of success. And, it's business, and we are a business. So we're trying to coexist constantly, business and trying to make a movie that you think you've never seen before, you know, and it doesn't always go smoothly, and you can get frustrated, but my God, it just seems like there's so much more opportunity now with these long-form television series. There's a lot of really great parts, and I can only sincerely hope that you get one that means something to you, because it is a good thing to say to those guys in college, fuck you, I have a job. I have a real job. Because otherwise they just don't understand us. She's still out there, he's still out there. But whatever you do in your life, maybe you go on and do something else. Always refer to yourself as an actor, because you came here and you did it. And that's what you are. And I remember when I couldn't get a job and I had this phony resume, and I thought to myself, you know what? Because my friends, they go, well, what have you done? What have you done? And all of a sudden I thought, it doesn't matter what I've done, it's who I am. I'm an actor. And I started referring to myself as an actor without credits. And it helped me, because that's who I was. And whatever you do, you did this. You did what most people can't do, is you said no to all the trappings of success and came here, because there is no guarantee here, you know, and you did it. And, I applaud actors. That's what I do.
I also feel like with Waterworld, which was actually, it financially did really well, didn't it? It was a big hit.
Yeah.
It was sort of that era when people, like if the internet had been around then, people were reporting more on the budget and the shooting schedule than actually judging the movie. I mean, is that something you've noticed change over time? Like now everyone knows what's going on a set, it feels like.
Yeah, I don't need to break Waterworld down for you, but it was really close to being what it probably should have cost, quite honestly. And I'll just give you a really quick example of it. I'll just try to, because you're here. What happened was they budgeted Waterworld at $99 million. I thought, hey, isn't that the way they sell cars? 99? Don't we numbers end on 99 if they're really trying to sell you something? But I go, $99 million, that's interesting. How did we come up with that number? Because the most expensive movie at that moment had been probably Terminator 2. That cost about $129 million. And I thought, well, I knew a little bit about movies, and I thought, you know what, we're probably going to be north of that because we're going to be on the water. So if you want to do a conservative thing, you add 10% on it. I'd do more, but if you want to do a conservative thing, let's put 10% on it. What's 10% of 130 million? It's 13 million bucks. I know, because I did this math before I walked in here. I didn't want to fuck up. So you take $13 million, you put it on top of 130, right? And it's suddenly 143. I think our movie cost 157. So if it cost 157, it was probably within almost its 10% contingency of what it really should cost. So Waterworld really, it was a difficult movie. It was a difficult movie, but it was really close. But what happened was the studio, and I understood their point of view. There had been movies that were over 100 million at that point, had gone over 100 million. but no movie was ever budgeted over 100 million. And so studios didn't want to be that first one to be the one of greenlighting a movie that was over 100 million. So I knew that tsunami was probably going to land on me, which was, wow, over budget the first day, 99. It happened to be scheduled at 99 days too. 99, wow. But you saw some images of it, and that's forever me. And I got to tell you, I married a second time. I have a 4, a 5, and a 7-year-old. And my first children, I detected at some moment they were they didn't really know how to think of this new family. Do you love us as much as you love them? It's like, I look at them, I said, I couldn't say, are you crazy? Because I could see there was real hurt in her eye. And I said, let me try to tell you something. I said, you've seen me your whole life. They're only going to get to see me a certain portion of their life. That's the way the world works. That's the way it works for us. And I saw my older children sober up a little bit, and they understood. And I said, you can't be jealous of them. They're going to be jealous of you. And I said, but the wonderful thing about the movies is my little girl who's 4 maybe sees me the way I am now. But she's going to get to look back, and she's going to get to see me in Waterworld, and she's going to get to see me in Dances with Wolves, and she'll see that I was the strongest guy in the world, because that's how they think of you.
Yeah.
And it won't be that way for her and me when she's 18 or 19, but she's going to have the movies in 70 millimeter.
They're probably a little too young, but when will you show them Bull Durham?
Well, I remember you have to watch out, because I've tried to make my career of being about a lot of movies, about a JFK, about A Field of Dreams, about Silverado. I've tried to bounce. I've done Mr. Brooks. I played a serial killer. I did Perfect World. I've really enjoyed making movies, and a lot of my movies, are ours. And so you're right about that. And I remember, in Perfect World, in the end, I'm killed. And my daughter, who was 12, I remember she was like a little adult, because I was a single father raising her. I mean, she was with my wife half the time, the other half the time they're with me. That was the one thing I would say to you. You want some experience in life. If something goes wrong for you, no matter what, keep your children with you half the time at least. You're owed it, and raise them and be with them. And so I have that with them. But my little daughter, I remember I was kind of standing here, and finally she got right up to me and she goes, I want to see that movie. And I go, what movie? She goes, that Perfect World movie, I want to see it. And I said, all right, well, there's some parts in it that you're not going to be able to see. I'm going to bet you that's fine with me. That's fine with me. And I go, okay, you can watch it. And somehow, magically, her brother and sister emerged from behind her back. Go, we want to see it too. And so I go, okay, we're going to go down and watch this movie. But when I say you cover your eyes, that's what you do, right? And they're like, that's what you do, right? Okay. So we go down there, and there was a couple times where I said, close your eyes. And then in the end, by the end, my son, who was 6, he was kind of laying on my chest. I was down, and he was kind of laying with his head here looking at the movie, and we were watching the movie on the floor. In the end, I die, and I'm shot. And I could tell he almost kind of stopped breathing. He was just watching it and watching it. And the movie was over, and then the credits started to roll, and I could hear my daughter sniffling. But my son rolled over, and he put his face really close to me, and he started touching my face. He wanted to make sure that I was all right, that I was still there. And so my children, there's a moment in time where they're going to get to see all my movies, and I think it's better that way. Mm-hmm. They can see Silverado at this age, when I was young and full of juice, and they can see Fandango, and they can see things, but they can also see some other stuff, And maybe my sons go, hey, Dad had it going on. You know, hey, Dad, no. The bathtub seat was, no. And the only reason I say that, son, is because every man has asked me about the bathtub scene in Sarandon.
And what do you say?
I know. Well, there's some things you don't, you know, I don't know how to say that. I don't know.
You said I could ask anything.
All right, you got me, okay.
Actually, before we move on to your current film, I want to touch really quickly on The Bodyguard.
Yeah.
Because you were a producer on that, and I believe you were instrumental in casting Whitney Houston.
Yeah, you know, but you know, some people give me credit for being very, very brave there, and I'm thinking, you know, I almost don't understand what people mean when, well, that was a brave choice. That's a brave thing. You did this. I'm thinking to myself, that's just what I wanted to do. I mean, I thought to myself, who's the prettiest girl I know that can sing? Whitney. We have really wonderful actresses, but we needed to maybe get over that hump and actually have her. So for me, she was just the prettiest girl, and she just carried herself so well, and I thought that she would be that. Now, Whitney had to read for that part, and we had to wait for her, but I was willing to wait, so I did a movie in between waiting for her, and I thought it was the right thing, and she had to read, and she was nervous like you, and I think I told that story in the memorial for Whitney. That was an absolute true story. Yeah, listen, I didn't think it was brave. You know, listen, the first girl that I thought was really beautiful was Diane Ross. Okay, I thought, wow, that girl's really beautiful, and then Whitney it just made a lot of sense to me, and so that's the only reason why I did, because it made a lot of sense to me. And Mary McDonnell was in Dances with Wolves, and she only had done stage plays, and the studio wanted to know, and I said, I think this is the right girl. So, you know, you guys may think you want to fall in love with a supermodel, but sometimes a waitress is really good. You know, you just have to, you know, people have to do it their own way, and I've done it my way. So.
By the way, I'd like to point out that 2 of your movies, both Bull Durham and The Bodyguard, are being made into musicals.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I don't know if you have ever wanted to do Broadway, but.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I think all of us would, you know, we just want a job, right? We just want a job. We just want to act, you know. I would do that if it was right.
I want to take some audience questions, but I do want to talk about Black or White some more. The young actress who plays your granddaughter in this movie, Gillian Estelle, and I joked earlier that they say never to work with animals or children, and you've had really good luck with both. How, you know, when I hate to use the term child actor, but when a young actor like that, you know, comes in the room, what's the process like of casting someone and building that chemistry?
I don't know. It's a mystery, right? I mean, it starts with 1,000 girls. It winds its way to 100 with the director, and then it comes down to 3 with me trying to choose. And, you know, what do I know when this happens? I know simply that 2 hearts are going to break. That's for sure, little girls. And Jillian won the part. And we were guessing because we needed her to be good in the movie, and she is good in it. We just needed that, and you get lucky. And this movie had a lot of things go against it, but we got lucky in a lot of ways, and no greater luck did we have as in having this little girl.
And, you know, you talked about being so passionate about this project that you would put your own money into it, which, if I were you, I wouldn't tell people. Or I wouldn't tell your friends.
Right.
Do people just want you to finance their movies now?
Right. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story that's got nothing to do with that. I remember when I was working on Dance with Wolves, I wasn't really that well known. I was in the middle of South Dakota actually doing something. I remember we went into a bar, and there's a big military complex there. And I remember for whatever reason, catching the guy's eye who was he was in the military, and he just couldn't be bothered with anything. And he just, like somebody said, he's something about me. He's like, no, not way, or whatever. But actually, I don't know. There was something going on with this guy that was really weird. I just caught it in my mind. Went on for the evening, and then at some point, I saw where somebody kind of let him know that I wasn't that I was a celebrity, that I was in the movies. And then this guy, kind of a hypocrite or whatever you want to call it, what a two-faced guy, he suddenly got really interested in me, right? Really, really interested. I mean, almost like, just agitated. And I remember he's about 20, and I remember he got really close to me. He goes, "Can you get me out of the military?" I didn't know what he was going to say to me, and that's what he said. Like, "I want to be in the movies. Can you get me out of the military?" And I thought, now that guy is passionate.
Why do you think you were so passionate about Black or White? Why did you respond to it?
I just thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was The Waitress, and I liked her. And I just thought, this is a movie. And I think it's a really authentic look at where we're at in race today in this country. We have a lot of movies that start to deal with it looking backwards, and I think that's appropriate. But, I wanted to kind of be involved with a movie that, where are we at today? Where are we at today? And we are a country of so many little biracial children are in our country. It's a fact of our life. And I grew up around a lot of racism. Whether it was hostile or not, it was still ignorant. And I'm better than my parents were. And my children are better than I am. My children don't know anything about this, and their children are going to be better. And this movie, Black or White, I feel like it's about family in the end of the day. It's a struggle, this movie, between two people that actually respect each other, but we start to fight, and we end up having the race card play, which I think a lot of people don't believe in the race card. I think they think it's just a tool. The fact is, there is racism in this country, and it's rampant. And it's ignorant, and it's not correct. But sometimes in life we play a race card, and it has no place in the discussion at all. And in the fight for this child, it comes about. And I think it's just a beautifully handled movie. And why did I do it? Because when I read it, I felt different. There's a passage in there that changed me as a person, helped me get my arms around this very delicate conversation that we seem to have trouble having. And so I made it for that, and I made it for you, and I made it for people who go to the movies. And now I'm done with it, and I'm broke. Please go. No, truly, it's not what you do. You're not supposed to do it. But I live romantically with the notion of what I do, and I do feel done. I felt like I did what I was supposed to do. What happens with Black and White now is what will happen. But I feel like that was what I was supposed to do. And I'm really at peace with that.
I do want to take some audience questions in the time we have remaining. Yeah. Shanta? Is that correct? Shanta, I'm sorry.
I love you ever since No Way Out.
You're like Lancaster.
Yeah.
I love that.
This is actually a question you're getting a lot. Is there any role or character you haven't played that you want to play that you haven't done yet?
Well, I'm sure there's something. I don't try to, anticipate, what the trends are, what I want to be. I just wait for a great one to speak to me. It's almost like it speaks to me, and then I know I want to do it. And it could be as silly as a popcorn movie, or it could be Black or White. I don't distinguish between these movies. I don't think Black or White's more important than anything. It became important to me, and it's how I choose to conduct myself. Whatever I do is important to me. I know it's not brain surgery. I know it's not any of that stuff. But when I'm doing it, I'm sweating the details. I'm trying to put myself under pressure. I'm going home early. I'm thinking about next week. I don't want to drive home and think I could have done something else. And that's what I am. So I can't drill down on a part I haven't done. I guess maybe if I could, I'd love to play Arthur in Camelot. I always felt so much for him, that that he was such a good man, and his best friend and his wife, and they had to have their own journey too. But I always had a lot of empathy for Arthur, because at the end of the day, what struck me the most is when his whole world is falling down around his ears. He's lost his best friend, he's lost his wife, and there's a moment he's with somebody and he goes, "But the round table, that was right?" Somebody said, "Yeah," and he goes, and right against might, that's right? And the guy says, "Yeah," and he goes, "So I did things right? And then he goes, "Yeah, you did, Arthur, you did things right." I think that's what we all want to know, is look back on our life, that we did things right, that we fought the good fight, that we fought a fight that we didn't know we could win. Because fuck, man, if you beat somebody up that you know you can, who are you going to brag to about that?
I would love to see you in Camelot. Could you finance that?
No.
We'll see how Black or White does.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a tough one. Question from Brooke. Hey, wants to know what's your favorite film role and why?
Of mine?
I presume. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I'm so glad that my career, when some people come up to me and say what movie they like of mine, I'm really happy that it doesn't drill down to a single movie. And because I don't know what's going to come out of someone's mouth. I don't. And so I can't, but I've had some great parts. I mean, when I think about Fandango, and I think about Bull Durham, about being Crash and Tin Cup, and getting, to ride with the Buffalo and pitching a perfect game in Yankee Stadium, and look at I've been able to. I can't think. I got to tell you, I would be almost slap me if say I need more. I've had a lot, and I love playing the guy Mr. Brooks. I love going to those places. I love playing this grandpa in Black or White. It just is what it is. My wife thinks I'm okay.
Does anyone ever talk to you about The War? That's a movie that
Yes,
I just
do.
adore, and
Yeah.
I would love to find fellow War fans out there. Question from Susan wants to know, Susan, where are you? Oh, back over there, okay. Wants to know, given your success behind the camera, how does it feel when you're directed by someone else now?
I love that, because I want to be better, and if a director can tell me something I know in my heart it helps me, I'm so glad, but I don't feel the need to direct any scene that I'm in that I'm not directing. I know what I want to do. I come to work with a really strong point of view. So if a director's not sure what to do, I know exactly what to do. If they know what they're doing, I love to be helped. I mean, I want to be good in the movie, and sometimes they can say, "Hey, Len, just pull back a little bit," or "Hey, there's a prop maybe you could play with," that you go, "Hey, thank you very much." It's a great relationship. I mean, I equate it to playing for a coach. I grew up with athletics, and I love to play for my coaches. I loved it. I would do anything for my coaches, and I'll do anything for my director as long as they're prepared. Panavision. It's like it's like okay, I get it.
We have a question from Katie Jacques. Is that correct? Okay. Are there any roles that you turned down or missed out on that you wish you had taken? And also, do you have any fun audition stories?
Well, I told you, I wanted to be in Schindler's List, so I went for it. I didn't get that. There was a role for a moment that I probably could have done in Platoon. I don't know that for sure, but my brother had been in Vietnam, and he came back, and a lot of the movies were dealing with people who weren't coping well. Vietnam vets who weren't coping well, and this one, in this instance, I was going to be playing a part that killed another American soldier. And I thought I couldn't do that to him, so I didn't take that part. I regret that I didn't take the part, but I know what my reasons were for not taking it. And so, there's things out there, but I've had my share. I just I can't think of it of a part right now.
Were you going to do Air Force One at one point? Is
Yeah,
that
they
true?
asked me to do it. I just thought Harrison would be better. So I said, why don't you do it? I just thought, you know, I can look at these guys, and I just said to my good friend who I'd done 13 Days for, and I did For Love of the Game for, and it was a movie, Air Force One, and I thought, I said, I think Harrison would be really good for this, and so he did it. It's a big fat hit, and I go off and make a $4 million movie. You know? But that's, you know, I've suggested people a lot for parts. I don't covet what's not mine.
Mm-hmm. It's very healthy. I mean, have you always had that philosophy, or did it take you a while to get there?
Well, I thought about Leslie Ann Warren when I was a kid a lot. I kind of coveted her. I mean, remember that thing, 69 Park Avenue? She goes, "You're the boss." I thought, oh my God, if she said that to me, I think I would. No, right.
We have a question from Brian Hawley. Way back there. Hey, wants to know, did you always think that you would make it, or did you have those times when you thought, what am I doing?
There was a time, I'll tell you what I didn't do as an actor. I didn't give myself a clock. Like, okay, I'll give myself 4 years and then I'm done. I never did that to myself. But there was a moment in time where the same guys were getting the parts. It was Sean Penn, it was Nicolas Cage, it was Mel Gibson, it was Richard Gere, it was Ken Wall, it was Michael Pare, it was Timothy Hutton. So, I wasn't going to get there because these names just kept coming up. And so, I mean, I was getting down to the last three, and I think I was being used as a bargaining chip. It's like they go, well, we got this one guy that'll do it, and they would drop their money and they would take this part. So I got to the point where I thought, I'm a bit of a realist too, even though I'm a hard-working dreamer. I'm a hard-working dreamer. But even though I am, I got to the point, I said, this maybe doesn't work for me. But I just kind of kept at it, and when I got my moment, it was, it worked for me. But I did have my doubts. I did. I thought, fuck, this is, how am I going to jump over these guys? I mean, their resumes are getting bigger, and mine's not, existing at all. So I did. I had my doubts, but I thought, well, shit, I'll just be a director then. I was really nutty, I'm telling you. And I said, well, you don't know that either. I had doubts. I have them. I have them even now about stuff. I want to be relevant. Am I relevant in this business? I don't know, but I have to be relevant to myself. So I'm going to make more cowboy movies, and I'm going to make more stuff, and I'm involved in writing a novel. My life is much bigger than the movies. That's what I'm known for around the world. But that is a very small part of who I am and how I conduct myself. My friends are friends that I played Little League with, and I love actors, but they're not in my group of friends. I'm not in any pack. I just never have been. I kind of do myself. But we have doubts. It's our nature. And if you're having doubts, it doesn't, you're probably not wrong. You just have doubts about it. But it's like, the hard thing for us is we almost have no choice. It's like, we're racehorses. We were just born to run. We're born to act. We want to act. And, I hope it can happen for you, and I hope you have that drive home on the freeway where you go, it just happened. It just happened. Stay close to actors. Stay close to you never know who a wheel is going to be in this world. Michael Blake, it's a pain in the ass. A guy, number one, loved me, but was really difficult. And look what happened to him. The other guy's house he stayed at was my friend, and I made him my producer on. He won an Academy Award. Stay close to each other. Ever remember the LA River where the Coors plant used to be down there, that beer? Well, I couldn't afford to go to acting class, so with those guys, we had our own acting class. No money. Built a little stage in a chemical plant. A chemical plant. It couldn't have been healthy. But we made a little stage like this, and nobody paid. And the actors all came in, and I made some of the rules, and the rules were do what the writers write. I know you think it's not good writing, just give it a chance. Just give it a chance. And that was our rule, do what the writers write, because there was young writers who thought they were pretty good too. So it's like, let's just quit judging each other, let's work, you know, and that's what we did. And none of us had any money, but we all, you know, took care of each other as we went forward. So, you know, I'd say stay close, you know, and we have to talk to each other, and we do talk ad nauseum about it. It's okay. I'm your priest, I'm your therapist, it's okay. You just do. You want it so bad, you talk about it. You talk about it.
Well, I want to thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for being a great audience.